Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of IBNW News. By the way, my son Trevor was messing around with my sound settings again, so if any of you are watching in the live audience, please step up and let me know if I'm too quiet or too loud, as I am constantly in a battle with this. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump into the article. So, long story short, with the thumbnail, what is going on at Second Baptist? It has been a while since we covered this story, and there have been some big updates that have happened recently. Specifically, I was sent in an article from the Houston Chronicle from a listener of the show, and we're going to go over the details of that article. But just to give you a summary or a wrap up of what exactly has been going on, let's go ahead and talk about what has led up to this. So, number one, if you did not know, Second Baptist Church in Houston, huge, giant megachurch, basically is being accused, and a lawsuit has been filed against them by people that call themselves the Jeremiah Council. This is former members and former leadership of that church. They're filing a lawsuit against Second Baptist, not for any money or anything like that, but they're filing the lawsuit because their voter member rights, being a member of that church, which used to entail having a say in what goes on in that church, was basically stripped away from them overnight in a basic, I don't want to say a secret ballot, but it almost sounds like a secret ballot. If you didn't know, there's thousands of members in this church. And then one day they held a meeting that wasn't very well advertised, and only about 200 members were present. And basically those members voted away their rights. A lot of people are saying that the language that was used in there was very ambiguous. They didn't know exactly what they're doing. We're going to get into that. So that's what was going on. The succession and power consolidation of the changes allowed basically Ed Young to name his son Ben Young as his successor in 2024. This is what we call nepotism, where basically a pastor places his son in a position of power within that church. Normally in a Baptist church, how things like that go, it is either 100% congregational led or it is elder led with congregational input. By the way, elder-led with congregational input is the system that I believe is the most biblical. We'll go over why later on. Long story short, though, Ben Young now has unchecked power to do whatever he wants. He can put anybody in any position that he wants to do. He has full control over the bank accounts, where the money goes, and the members have no right in asking, hey, can I see the books? Can I see the bank receipts? Could I have a say in what goes on in the church? And the members have absolutely no right whatsoever by the new bylaws to say anything within that church. There have been a lot of allegations of deceit going on, which has been claimed by the Jeremiah Council. And there are a lot of repercussions that can happen with this. The current status of it right now, the church has requested, Second Baptist has requested that this case be heard in a specialized business court because of the substantial financial assets involved. It's estimated to be over $1 billion for this megachurch. Crazy, I know, right? And both sides have basically been publicly battling in court documents and media statements. And in this most recent news, as you can see by this headline, in October of 2025, Second Baptist leaders are basically being accused of quietly copying significant portions of the bylaws from Fellowship Church and Grapevine, which just happens to be run by Ben Young's brother, Ed Young Jr., who a lot of us on this channel know who Ed Young is. He's a loud guy who says really ridiculous things, especially on Twitter or X and social media. He flies around in airplanes all the time and brags about it and takes pictures of it and, living a very lavish lifestyle. So let's kind of get into what all this is talking about. Sorry for that very long explanation, but I know some people might not have been caught up or have not heard about this before. As we are diving in there, I appreciate all the Happy Veterans Day stuff, and happy Veterans Day to all the other veterans out there as well. Thank you all for your service. Let's go ahead and jump into this. So, as this article reads, it says the revolt at Houston's Second Baptist Church started when group members realized that they had given away their authority to vote on church business after an election in which hardly any congregants participated. It didn't take long for several influential church members who are now suing to reverse changes made in that crucial vote. I do want to make note, they're not suing for money, at least is from the latest that I've seen. They're not suing for any money. They're just suing to get control back of their church. It was basically stolen away from them, it seems like. And also to realize where the new bylaws came from. They bear a striking resemblance to the bylaws in Fellowship Church in Grapevine, once again, pastored by one of the Young siblings. There are strong family links between the two churches. Fellowship's lead pastor, Pastor Ed Young, is the son of former longtime Second Baptist senior pastor Ed Young Sr. So when Second Baptist leaders decided to quietly rewrite the bylaws, they turned to Fellowship's general counsel, Dennis Brewer. Second Baptist leaders copied key terms, and this gets crazy, by the way. Second Baptist leaders copied key terms from Fellowship's bylaws. The senior pastor is now the church's executive officer. The governing board is called the ministry leadership team, and some Second Baptist members are still confused about what those and other changes will portend for the future. Also, Second Baptist is a Southern Baptist church, and the new bylaws conflict with a key tenet of that denomination, which is a democratic rule church. Now, I'm going to get a little bit into the Bible with this because, once again, we do see a lot of Baptist churches that are 100% congregational led. Personally, I do believe a 100% congregational led church is not a biblical model. Anybody that's ever been a part of one does know that it is really hard to get anything done at a 100% congregational led church. I mean, that's if you can get all your members there. The reason why I want to go over here real quick, though, is the model that we do see in the Bible is an elder-led church with congregational affirmation, congregational input, meaning members of a church should have the right to be able to vote on things, and they should have the right to be able to have a say. When it's the elders who do come down to the ultimate decision. But the Bible makes clear, especially in various descriptions, that transparency was always present. Let's just go through some scriptures before we continue on with this. First, I do want to take you to 1 Timothy chapter 5:17, just to show you that elder-led is the way that the Bible kind of looks at this. So elders who rule the church are worthy to be considered of double honor. That's talking about they can earn a living by preaching the word. But the key thing that we're looking at here today is the elders who rule. The elders who rule. And you'll see this all throughout the Bible. The elders were the ones who were in charge of the church. But does that mean the congregation gets no input? Absolutely not. In fact, you could say by the charge in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 2 through 3, that shepherds should be looking out for what's best for the sheep, not lording things over them, as it says over here. But let's go ahead and jump over to why I believe congregational input is necessary. Acts chapter 6, verses 3 through 5 says this. It says, therefore, brethren, and this was how they picked deacons, by the way, in the early church, the very first picking of deacons. It says here, therefore, brethren, select from among you 7 good men of reputation, full of the Spirit. When they say brethren, he's talking to the entire church right here. Full of the Spirit and wisdom, who we may put in charge of this task. But we will devote ourselves, and this is the apostles talking, we will devote ourselves to prayer and to the ministry of the word. The statement found approval. Look at this. The statement found approval with the whole congregation. So you see the entire congregation here was in agreement, showing that church members in those days had input. They had a voice. They weren't silenced like what's going on over in Second Baptist right now. And they chose for themselves Stephen. So not only did they approve, they also got to pick and nominate the people. Obviously, these people, when it comes to deacons and elders, members should be able to nominate these things. The final say does come down to the eldership, but they have a say in who gets nominated, things of that nature, and they have a say in agreement with all that. It's congregational affirmation all the way. Another example right here, 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 4 through 5. This is where church discipline was being enacted. Paul wrote here, in the name of our Lord Jesus, when you are assembled, and I with you in the Spirit, with the power of our Lord Jesus, I have decided to deliver such a one over to Satan for the destruction of the flesh, so that his spirit may yet be saved in the day of our Lord Jesus. What we see here is Paul is calling for this to happen among the entire assembly. When you are assembled, talking about all believers, they are to enact this together. While maybe the elders doing the final action, this is in the presence of the congregation. Nothing is held behind closed doors. never mind. I was going to say something, but we'll leave that for another day. Another one to go to, just to show this, Acts chapter 15. This is the Jerusalem Council. And picking through various verses in here, it shows here, when they arrived at Jerusalem, they were received by the church and the apostles and the elders. Notice all those people there. And they reported all that God had done with them. So they were received by who? Not just the elders and the apostles, but also the entire church. But some of the sect of the Pharisees who had believed stood up saying, it is necessary to circumcise them, to observe the law of Moses. Now, this is basically where they're going to start arguing. Arguing is probably not the right word. Debating amongst themselves. What laws of Judaism should the Gentiles be following? And this is when the eldership came together. But listen to this. All the people kept silent while they were listening to Barnabas and Paul as they were relating what signs and wonders God had done through them among the Gentiles. Notice Paul and Barnabas didn't go just to the elders and the apostles and tell them, and then the apostles came out later and said, we heard them, everything's good. Paul and Barnabas were sharing amongst the entire congregation. There was transparency happening here. Acts chapter 15, look at this. And it seemed good to the apostles and to the elders with the whole church. Once again, not just the apostles, not just the elders, but also the entire church, to choose men from among them to send to Antioch with Paul and Barnabas. Judas called Barnabas and Silas leading men among the brethren. So congregation, they were able to hear the deliberation. They were able to hear what was going on. They had input, and they also got to choose from among them who they were going to send on this missionary journey. Seems to be enough evidence, and we can go over a lot more, but it seems to be, I'm just laying out the case, that the Bible is very clear when it comes to the description of how church polity is to be ran. It should be elder-led with congregational affirmation and input. Let's go ahead and jump back over to the article now. So it says here, moving back down to where we left off, now church members worry that their lack of a vote could destroy the church they love. They have no way of knowing, and this is so true right here, they have no way of knowing if Second Baptist leaders plan to sell off any of its 6 campuses or its highly regarded school, whether the church governing board will change the bylaws yet again, behind closed doors even, or who the board will appoint as the next pastor when that time comes. Now, brothers and sisters, this is why I always, and this is maybe like my little soapbox thing, I have never been a huge fan of megachurches. Most of you who watch this channel know this. I do believe there are some good ones out there, but I think those are few and far in between. The propensity for something to go wrong inside a megachurch is just that much more magnified, because there's a lot more ways to hide corruption. There's a lot of easier ways to make sure things are happening behind the scenes. You have untouchable CEO pastors and mysterious boards that don't have accountability to anybody going on there. It's very much ran like a CEO mega corporation, which I think is one of the saddest things that you can see happen to a church. But just look at almost any giant mega church out there. Most of them, sadly, are ran this way. Why is Second Baptist nearly as big as it is when they could have just kind of broken off and have your 6 campuses, but those 6 campuses shouldn't be campuses. They should just be independent churches on their own. The best model I've ever seen, it's called growing out, not growing up. When your church is growing up, it turns more into a corporation, like a big giant, skyscraper. But when your church is growing out, and you are, let's just say, planting churches in new places and placing pastors and elders in there, this isn't a satellite church. This is a church where they are on their own. Yes, they got their start from Church A, but they are now Church B, and they may be in close fellowship with Church A, but Church A has absolutely no control over them. That is the way that I think things should go. And I think, honestly, you can make a really good argument that that's the way the Bible has on it. Let's go ahead and keep jumping into the article. It says here, they know that Second Baptist leaders transferred the Winning Walk, the church's television ministry, to Ed Young Sr. after the bylaws changed. Whether that asset would be sold or given to him is unclear. So the father, who was basically let go or fired right after his son took over and the bylaws changed, what's Ed Young Sr. saying about this? Honestly, we don't know. I'm assuming there's probably non-disclosure agreements or NDAs involved, as you often see. Another downfall to a lot of megachurches. NDAs are usually involved in there, where somebody cannot talk. And this could be, and I'm not saying it is, but the possibility is definitely out there. This could be some type of payoff money. This could be something where the basically like, here, take this. This is yours now. Be quiet. Get out of here. Who knows? I don't know. I really don't. But you're leaving it open to that type of speculation when you are not being transparent with what's going on. Okay, Terp put here, would you mind defining what you mean by megachurch? Is it a number or a style? So this is kind of a debated thing. If you ask Google, I think Google actually tells you a megachurch would be constituted around 3,000 active members or something along those lines. I don't really have a number on it. And you could disagree with me on this, and that is absolutely fine. I've always been of the personal opinion, if the elders and pastors inside that church are not able to name every single member within that church, at least their first name, then I believe that that church has become much out of touch with who they are shepherding and have gotten too big. And at that point, that church needs to look at setting up a church plant and moving some people over, basically. That is my opinion. So I really don't have a number. Once again, I think Google says like 3,000 is a megachurch. My personal opinion is if you as a pastor or an elder can't name by name, not every attendee, I'm not asking for that, but every member, the people who are loyal to that church, are you able to actually go there and point out their names and know who they are? That's what I would define. Once you get beyond that, then you're getting into that megachurch territory. Lane jumping on. Appreciate the kind words, everybody. Hopefully, okay, Terp, that answered your question. Let me know if it did not. Let me know your thoughts, by the way. This isn't, for those of you who aren't familiar with the live format that we do when we cover news articles, this is a back and forth feedback. This isn't just a me talking to you. I love to take people's comments on this and see what y'all have to say. That's what I think makes us a little bit more unique compared to other shows where it's just one person talking to. You have a voice, and I want to, place that voice out there as well for people to see. Like Elaine. So Elaine in Psalm 91 writes in, she says, the experiences I had in large churches and a couple mega churches were not all that positive. I'll just leave it there and say no more. There you go. And I can say the same. I have actually been to a mega church and went to a mega church for a long period of time. And that was honestly one of the things that kind of woke me up like, wow, this just doesn't seem right. The fact that I can sneak in and sneak out and have zero accountability whatsoever. Anyways, let's go on with the rest of the article. If you still have questions, by the way, anybody out there, drop them in as we are going through this. Even for you watching in the future, highly encourage you to drop them in the comments. So let's keep jumping in. It says the move to a CEO top-down leadership style, there you go right there, is common in independent or non-denominational churches like Fellowship. Ed Young Jr., said Lovett Williams Jr., senior consultant at the Lewis Center for Church Leadership. It's almost unheard of, though, in Southern Baptist churches, which I've only been a part of a couple SBC churches. It is true. It is true that it is hard to find that. Usually, like I said, you find mostly congregational led. There is a big shift, though, to start moving towards a more biblical model of elder led with congregational affirmation and input. He goes on to say, typically in the congregational model, everything is ultimately the prerogative of the congregation, he said. But being a Baptist church may not be the most important thing for Second Baptist Houston. I guess they'll just be called Second Houston after this. That may be the case with Fellowship, which is affiliated with the Southern Baptist Convention. Another reason, once again, why if you watch the video that Faith and Photos and I did together on the Southern Baptist Convention, highly encourage you to go check that one out, because the Southern Baptist Convention, man, I tell you what, it's just more and more disappointing the more I read about, especially a church like Fellowship being involved in there. But let's keep going in. It says, in a document attached to Fellowship's bylaws sold online, Ed Young Jr. calls democracy a societal invention that causes unnecessary bureaucracy in churches. And here is where I will have really crazy, but here is where I will actually have a slight bit of agreement with Ed Young Jr. In the fact that is, if anybody has been a part of a 100% congregational-led church, you know this. It is hard to get anything done. And that is the truth. I remember as a little kid sitting in the church that my dad was an associate pastor at and hearing them argue about the color of carpets. I mean, it can get that petty down to the nitty-gritty. Once again, all the more reason why I believe the correct biblical model is elder-led with congregational affirmation. The elders are the final be-all, say-all in this decision-making. Everything, though, is transparent to the membership. They got access to the finances, like as in they can see the books, they can see where the money is going. They have input on what happens to buildings and things of that nature. Because remember, who's giving money to keep that building funded and the lights on? It's the congregation. It's not all the pastors and elders. So input gets that get had on certain issues, but especially when it comes to things like actually affirming who is going to be the next pastor, who is going to be an elder or a deacon, I do believe especially those rest solely on the eldership. They're the ones that are called to it. So let's go ahead and keep jumping in over this. It says here, go figure for Ed Young Jr. using out of context Old Testament passages. He said, did Moses have to wait for a 51% majority before pulling out of Egypt, he wrote. If he did, they'd still be there. That's a stupid analogy because God was the one who told them to get out of Egypt. It wasn't Moses telling them to get out of Egypt. And not to mention, Moses also wasn't the pastor in a New Testament church. You see how false teachers just deceive people with the way that they twist scripture in unbiblical ways? It's so sad. It goes on to say, if he did, they'd still be there. Did Solomon submit his temple plans to a building committee? Did Elijah have a little committee of Israelites following around at Mount Carmel, looking over his shoulder and insisting that he explain why he was dousing also was? See, this is how false teachers operate, by the way. They try to gaslight you and they try to make you feel like you're an idiot. In all reality, they're the ones who are twisting the words of God out of context and deceiving people who honestly won't look any further than their noses, sadly. It goes on to say, it has been 6 months since former church members formed a group called the Jeremiah Council. By the way, I'm sorry, I can't let this go. By the way, notice how he didn't mention the verses we went over, like the Jerusalem Council in Acts 15, or the picking of deacons in Acts chapter 6, or church discipline in 1 Corinthians chapter 5. We can go on and on and on and on. He didn't bring up any of those references. Why? Because they don't suit his cause. So he had to bring up irrelevant Old Testament passages that had absolutely nothing to do with New Testament church polity, period. I love what y'all put in here. Faith and Photo said, old Ed Young Jr. spoke at one of my classes at Southwest Oh man. I wonder how that was for you there. Faith and Photos, just crazy. Let's go ahead and I do love what T said here too. Solomon was a king. What is he even talking about? Exactly. Solomon wasn't the pastor of a New Testament church. He was a king. Very big difference there. Oh my goodness gracious. Let's go ahead and keep rolling through. It says here, it has been 6 months since the former church members formed a group called the Jeremiah Council and sued over the revamped bylaws. They want the old bylaws reinstated. Second Baptist leaders who did not respond to interview requests said they have said in emails to their congregation and in court documents that they broke no rules. Of course, they're going to say that with the 2023 vote, and that they needed new bylaws to run the megachurch, which has $1 billion in assets and 94,000 members. Wow. So only about 200 people voted from what I'm tracking, and they have 94,000 members. Insane. Absolutely insane that 200 people got to speak for 94,000 people. Once again, more downfalls to the megachurch system. That's what I'm saying right there. I'm just pointing that out. I don't think I'll ever get off that soapbox, but you could just see the secrecy that this was really done in. How do only 200 some people respond to a church meeting? I understand. Trust me, at my church's meetings, does every single member show up? No. probably about, in my guesstimation, probably maybe close to 3/4 of the members show up, sometimes half, depending on the day or anything like that. But for the most part, I know not everybody's there, but 200 out of 94,000. Insane. Absolutely insane. Let's go ahead and keep reading here. It says here, Ed Hendy, a former member of the Jeremiah Council, or a member, not a former, but a member of the Jeremiah Council, recently left the church after more than 30 years because of the governance dispute. And there are a lot of people that got left out. There have been a lot of repercussions going on, even within Second Baptist today. Ever since the lawsuit was filed, this conflict has just been intensifying and intensifying, even to the removal of longtime members and volunteers, even including their choir director and the vice chairman of deacons from their duties. It's crazy when you really start digging into this. It goes on to say, we're not suing for money, he said. People lose track of this when we ain't asking for a darn thing. Well, it doesn't help, too, when you're a member of, I mean, this kind of, so I'm curious, by the way, if anybody out there is from Second Baptist or was a part of Second Baptist, please let me know what you're thinking about all this. I love to get your input. The first time we talked about this, I got a lot of great input from people on that. It's sad, though, to see that somebody who claims to be a member of a church is being quoted as swearing, which is not something that Christians should be doing. That's not a good testimony of the world. That's not helpful at all. I'm going to call a spade and call as it is. But he says here, people lose track of this when we ain't asking for a darn thing. I'm not asking for a parking place. I'm not asking for membership to the fitness facility. If a church if they have a fitness facility at that church, oh my goodness. What are we asking? What we're asking for is that the members' rights be restored from when they were, in our opinion, fraudulently taken away. Fraudulently taken away. I cannot talk today. Oh my gosh. Oh, and then Tina talking about the Southern Baptist Convention. Yeah, I saw the video you sent me, Tina. That was an outstanding video that your pastor sent. And send all the more. Send more my way. I really appreciate those. Hey, HB, I have not seen you on in a while either. We actually haven't been going live for quite some time, just because I've been really busy. I'll get to that at the very end of this, just in case people don't really care. So those of you who do care, stick around in the end, and I'll talk a little shop business and everything with y'all. But let's go ahead and keep going. It says, with the flip of a switch, for the first time, Doug Beach members hearing Dennis Brewer's name was maybe May 30th, 2023, the day before the bylaws vote changed everything. A little more than a week earlier, Second Baptist Board of Trustees had no idea that the Youngs were rewriting the bylaws, said Beck, who served on the board at that time and is now a member of the Jeremiah Council. After learning about the proposed changes from another trustee, Beck demanded to see the documents and emails provided to the Chronicle show. It goes on to say, over the next few days, the board received the bylaws piecemeal email show. Some came directly from Brewer. On May 30th, Brewer sent an email to Lee Maxey, the church financial officer, and Beck about the proposed bylaws to be adopted by the trustees at a meeting that night. Call or text with any questions. Brewer wrote, let me know how the meeting goes today. It goes on to say, the board did not have enough time to fully review the documents before the May 31st, 2023 church vote on the bylaws. Once again, proving that this was just done in secret. They whipped it up in secret behind closed doors. That's what it seems like. And then presented out, all right, here's the stuff. We're voting on it. And like, yeah, less than 24 hours. Let's go. Beck said, and Second Baptist leaders refused to postpone the meeting. So the trustees, even those alarmed by the change, gave the bylaws their stamp of approval. Shame on them, honestly, for that. And they said they did so because they trusted Ed Young Sr. This is why in the Army, I always tell my soldiers, trust, but verify. It goes on to say, according to the Jeremiah Council's lawsuit, only about 200 members voted that night. The new bylaws passed almost unanimously. It's unclear how much, if anything, Second Baptist paid Brewer's law firm to work on the bylaws. However, the church named Brewer to its new governing board shortly after the vote. Wow, how convenient. Does that not seem like corruption to you? That is So insane. Goes on to say, Hendy hopes everything will become clear in court. I think the weeks to come, the discovery that is going to come out is going to be enlightening, he said. Let me go ahead and bring up the comments here so that way y'all can see what's been going on in there. It continues on to say, the Jeremiah Council contends that few church members really understood the change in leadership structure until a year later when Ed Young Sr. stepped down as senior pastor at Second Baptist and publicly tapped his other son, Ben Young, as his successor. With 24 hours, Ben Young kicked his father out of the church, the lawsuit states. Once again, we just honestly don't know because I'm assuming, and this is my assumption, no proof to the contrary, there's probably an NDA involved where he can't talk. Angry church members dug into the bylaws and they saw that they have given away their right to vote. With the flip of a switch, our governance went to the exact same governance that Fellowship Church has, said Rob Huntgate, a Houston executive at the Jeremiah Council. Second Baptist leaders copied critical language. This is where it really gets crazy, by the way. Second Baptist copied critical language from Fellowship's bylaws, language that altered the entire governance structure of the church. On voting, it says, quote, members are not entitled to vote in person, by proxy, or otherwise. No entitlement to vote. On the governing board, the senior pastor. Tell me this doesn't reek of corruption and basically being able to do whatever you want to do with zero accountability and oversight. The senior pastor shall nominate persons who he deems qualified. Not even an elder board, not even multiple people. The senior pastor. This is a CEO mega corporation move. That's exactly what this sounds like. On changing the bylaws, these bylaws may only be altered, amended, or repealed, and new bylaws may only be accepted by the MLT or the ministry leadership team, basically the hand-selected people by the CEO pastor. That's what this sounds like. HB says, glad to see you addressing this. It hasn't been talked about enough. And exactly, it has not been. And, you know, shame on me for not picking up this earlier. But that's, once again, for those of you who do email me news articles and email me these things, that helps amazing because I check my email. I don't check it every single day because I have, you know, a full-time job where I'm working 13 to 14 hours a day. But I do read the emails, and I do try to get in and study those when I can. And I had the time today because I'm off. It's Veterans Day to dig into this a little bit. Tina says, talk about family drama. What a lovely Christ-like example they're displaying, all sarcastically, by the way. And it does. It sounds exactly like a dictatorship. That's what this sounds like. It says here, according to a Chronicle analyst, the Houston Chronicle right there, the Chronicle analyst, it says 49.4% of the bylaws mirror the language from fellowships. Now, you may be saying that's not a lot of bylaws. But just remember, and it's going to go on here to say this, many of the differences between the two texts are related to the private school Second Baptist runs. Fellowship does not have a similar school. So you can imagine that majority of the changes right there, if you took out all the school stuff, I'd imagine that percentage would be a lot higher than just 50%. But even still, if go back to your college days, if you were caught plagiarizing with 50% of something, you would be in a lot of trouble. Most plagiarizer checkers try to keep you underneath a 15% or 20%. I don't know what it is nowadays, 20 or 15%, you know, plagiarism check rate, whatever it's called. This is 50%. Is 50%. And of that, 18.4% of the document was copied verbatim, and the other 25.7% reflect minor changes, and 5.2% was paraphrased. So at least they didn't do a complete copy and paste, but it basically was. It goes on to say, power at Second Baptist now lies in the hands of pastor-nominated individuals. Once again, the seeds of corruption are there. If I could pick who was going to, let's just say that I decided to have people govern this channel right here, that this channel was to the point where I couldn't do it on my own anymore and I needed some accountability, and I hand selected the people to do that, as opposed to going outside to get third-party help to nominate other trusted people who maybe I don't know and I'm not in cahoots with to go ahead and do this. Don't you see? It's crazy how where this corruption can go. Let's keep reading on here. So it says who control the church's property and assets. Basically, they can do whatever they want. They could sell off buildings. They can do money laundering. They can sell buildings to the people inside the membership, and then we can go on and on and on about this. I'm curious. I might actually write over to our good friend Barry Bowens on the Trinity Foundation and see what he thinks about all this, because he does his homework way better than I can as an investigative journalist. Goes on to continue saying, though, church members cannot vote in the legal or financial members. Members of the ministry leadership team also can vote on financial matters from which they personally benefit. Meanwhile, 5 of the 6 board members are either related to the Ed Yum family or to the Yum family or have financial ties with them. Oh, how convenient that must be. Does this not sound like just absolute corruption to you? It does to me. Fellowship Inc. It goes on to say, within the church, some members wonder if the new leadership plans to sell off property or other church assets. After all, Ed Young Jr. did so at Fellowship. In one case, he reportedly sold a church campus in Miami with little notice to any of the congregants. According to a story in the Roy's report, Fellowship spokesman said the Miami congregation and staff didn't know the changes was coming until the church was actually sold. I think we actually covered that one. It says, however, the spokesman said that Pastor Ed has a long history of leading above reproach at Fellowship Church and has a long history of being a leader who seeks out wise counsel before making any decision. Oh, and you're just trusting that to happen. And by the way, if you just go check out some of Ed Young's posts on Instagram and Twitter, I don't think he's the type of person I would trust with wise counsel. My opinion, take it or leave it. It goes on to say, earlier this year, Ben Young sent his congregation an email addressing critics worried that Second Baptist could suffer a similar fate. He said, do I own the church, he wrote? Could I sell it and pocket the money? Second Baptist is the Lord's house. The church is a nonprofit. No one owns this church, and no one person could sell it for any profit whatsoever. That just sounds like gaslighting to me, because you could call it the Lord's house, but you basically told the Lord's people, the members of the church, the sheep that you're supposed to protect, they have no say in anything anymore. And you can do whatever you want. That's exactly what it sounds like. Goes on to say, he did not address the ministry leadership team. He did not address whether the ministry leadership team could sell it, but the new bylaws give the team, quote, the power to buy, sell, mortgage, pledge, or encumber any church property and incur related indebtedness. Case in point right there. Jeremiah council members say that they need transparency to the answers and other lingering questions, but the accountability that they want is diametrically opposed to that of Church Second Baptist is now modeled after, which is Fellowship once again. Most of the time, if people who don't really know you cry out for more accountability, they're saying that because they want to control you, Ed Young Jr. wrote. Of course he said that. Of course Ed Young Jr. said that. They want to control you. No, they want to actually hold people accountable. This is, oh my goodness, the amount of gaslighting that Ed Young Jr. does is just astounding. Once again, check out his ex if you want. You could see just what a gaslighter he is. It says Ed Young Jr. wrote in the bylaws kit for sale for $70 on the Fellowship Church website. Don't get sucked into a divisive power play that can eventually destroy your ministry and your church. Your church? Your church. Your ministry and your church. I thought it was God's church. Yeah. I like what Tina says. She put here, there is a reason you don't have family and friends be your accountability. Exactly. Because they're always going to default to what they want, even if it's subconscious. You might have that, good couple friends, like I like to think that I do have, who will tell you, Tim, you're veering off a little bit on left field there. Those are great friends, and hold on to them. But you never want to put your friends in that situation. It's always best to have a third party. And they're, once again, a church with $1 billion assets. They can afford it. Faith and Photo says, who needs to sell it when there are other decisions, financial, that became made to profit the pastor? Yeah, exactly. Goes on to say, while Second Baptist has not publicly announced any big changes in the future, and we'll be watching. We'll be checking it out. Says they have not publicly announced any big changes in the future. The church's similar bylaws may open the door to the heavily branded side of the Fellowship Church, which lists numerous products on sale on its website. Ed Young Designs sells t-shirts and hats embolized with shark jaws and a t-shirt with a painting of Jesus that goes for $25. Creative pastor sells material for Young's sermon series, ministry resources, and access to church video library for $100. Who would pay $199 a year to listen to Ed Young blab on? That is crazy. And a C3 Global sells coaching, training, and digital resources on an elite package that costs $10,000 a year. What is going on? Oh my worldliness. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. I really wonder what Paul would say if he could see that. I wonder what Jesus would be saying to this. I can imagine it, but I'm not going to misspeak for my Lord. As a fellowship, CEO Ed Young Jr. has been criticized by those who think he lives a lavish lifestyle, which he does, including using a private jet to travel across the country. We talked about this. In a 2013 story in the Dallas Morning News, he brushed off the criticism, saying that he uses the private jet leased by the church because it's simply more practical with his unyielding travel schedule. You're the pastor of a church. Why are you traveling so much? If you are the pastor of a church, why don't you actually pastor your church instead of traveling all over the country? How about that? Makes a lot of sense, right? And that he reimburses the church for any personal trips. So he does use it for personal trips. Does he reimburse the church for the maintenance that goes involved with the personal trips? Just the fuel, the airport fees, what? And I wonder if that's going to be filed in a 990 somewhere. I don't think so, and I highly doubt it. Highly doubt it. Where's the receipts? Prove it. That's what I want to see. And Hendy says he has no idea what Second Baptist plans to do under the new bylaws. He just wants the vote back so the congregation can make its own decisions, he said. I can tell you, and it ends here with this, I can tell you that my objections are simple, Hendy said. That's not what the church was founded on. That's not what the membership was told. That's not what the bylaws said. And we believe any meeting to change the bylaws since then was fraudulently called and manipulated. And that is the end of the article. So with all that being said, you can see the potential for danger that is going on there. Tina said, but that's boring, Tim. Oh my gosh. She also said, unacceptable. Jesus would be flipping tables in that place. And that's absolutely what I imagine. Faith and Photo says, just saying he reimbursed the church for his personal trip sounds lavish to me. Yeah, exactly. So let's go ahead and just kind of once again break this down. Number one, we need to be in prayer for Second Baptist because obviously this seems like a rough time. Like I said, if you are a member of Second Baptist or you were a member, please reach out to me. Let me know your thoughts on this. Keep me informed so I can, get a good assessment of what's actually going on there. And, I will bring up what you say on the internet. I won't have to name your name or anything like that. But the few people that have wrote me on this were pretty passionate about it. So this is, I think, something very, very important because sadly, if it can happen with this church, what's going to stop it from happening in your church? Are you lessons that we learn from this? Are you actually attending membership meetings? You should if you are a member of a local church. Are you actually looking at what's being voted on? Is your pastor and your elders doing a good job of explaining what's actually being voted on? Or are you just being told to just trust me, bro? Not right whatsoever. So we'll keep tabs on this. We'll see what's going on. It's not going to go away. But as always, if you got more on it, send it in to me because that's really how all this came about was because, obviously I think I forgot about it. It was in the back of my mind and I forgot. And one of y'all emailed me and brought it up and here we are now. All right. With all that being said, that's going to be this portion of the show over. I told y'all that I would give you a quick update just because, once again, I have not been going live as much as normally do. And there's a reason for that. I've said it kind of in the the past before, like, my church we've been needing a little bit more help. Our associate pastor, our church is small. Our associate pastor didn't make a lot of money. He found a job where he was able to provide for his family. So he took that job. Completely understandable. And there's no animosity there towards that. But there has been a lot more going on in our church. We only have one elder now. So that elder is the senior pastor, and he has been putting everything on his shoulders, his wife's shoulders. It has been tough. So I'm trying to help out where I can with that. For example, like I got the wonderful opportunity. I don't look at this like a burden at all. I got to preach over there this past Sunday. I got to help out with a few Wednesday lessons, but that does require me to take time to actually put in studying and things of that nature, which as much as I love doing these YouTube videos, my local assembly is always going to come first. Another things going on, work, just always insane. I am in the Army. Like I said, I work a job that keeps me going from, anywhere between 10 to 14 hours, depending on the day and how crazy it is. And on top of that, I am starting to get my transition ready to where I get out of the Army. Now, I know some of you, and maybe I wish I would have put a different picture up or alarm because they saw me in a hospital gown in a picture I posted up. I've been getting a lot of medical stuff done. Yeah, some of y'all know I recently had shoulder surgery. I'm going to go get another surgery here soon. I got a lot of issues with my back just in being in the military for over 21 years. So I was getting a lot of tests and things like that done, and candidate for nerve burnings and all these other things. I'm just getting everything documented down, and it's a lot of medical appointments. So that's taking up a lot of time as well. So that's the reason why. My hope, and before the end of the year, we're going to do kind of like a state of the channel type thing, where we talk about this, because I always preach about transparency. We're going to talk about what the plans are for the future of this channel. We're going to talk about the finances that have been made on this channel, mostly through monetization of the videos. Because you know me, I'm not over here putting up a Patreon and all this stuff. Not that I think that there's anything wrong with people who do that. It's just my personal conviction as of now to not do anything like that. I don't want to be a burden. I like that I can put this stuff out for free, and then the monetization that comes from YouTube, sadly, that does involve ads. I try to keep the ads on the newer videos in just the beginning portion and not in the middle. The older videos, I'll place them in the middle eventually later on. But that ad revenue does keep this channel going because it does cost money for the streaming software and for, Canva to make the thumbnails and video editing stuff and, all that kind of things. That costs money. And the revenue that we get from here is just enough to be able to pay for it. There's not really much surplus. And the surplus that does go, it goes to my dad, who is in an elderly care, mental care facility because he has Alzheimer's. That's really expensive, like $5,000 a month. Thankfully, VA kicked in, prayers answered. So we're only paying, I think, like $2,100 a month now between our whole family. So any profits that do come from this go to that. So I'm not sitting here pocketing stuff. We're going to get more into that as we go into our end of year stuff. Kind of talked about some of it now, but I just wanted to absolutely let y'all know what has been going on and why we haven't been going live as much. So that's that. We'll talk about more in the future here later on because do got some plans and things of that nature, but I want to run it by y'all to see what y'all say, because once again, I'm all about input from people. Y'all are the ones who make this channel go round. And I've always said, as long as there's one person listening, we're going to keep doing this. So all that. Let's go jump over to the comments here real quick before we jump off. HB wrote, there's a scheme in the SBC, North American Mission Board, that smacks of the same corruption. Yeah, actually, and Faith and Photos and I don't think we talk too much about the NAMBY too much in there, just because I didn't have a lot of concrete facts and I didn't want to go over it unless I double checked and verified. But there are some smellings of some corruption going on with the North American Mission Board. We touched up on it a little bit in that episode, but once I definitely find some more concrete stuff, we'll jump in and talk about that some more. Y'all are awesome, saying you understand and keeping me in prayer. I appreciate that. Tina, oh my goodness, you had 2 shoulder surgeries, so I know that pain. I've also had nerve burning as well. I'll be praying for you. Yeah. For the record, I don't think I'm good. They did this thing, just to give you a little description. So they shoved some numbing agents down my spine and into my spine, which always sounds pleasant, doesn't it? Just to see if I would be a candidate for nerve burning. It turns out that sadly that did not alleviate my pain. So I don't think that is going to happen. And even if I did the nerve burning, that's only temporary. The doctor said that stuff lasts for like 9 months, and then your nerves eventually grow back. So, and even then, to me, it just, knowing me and how stubborn I am, if I didn't feel any pain, I would be that hardhead and go out and try to do the things that got me in this mess in the first place again. So maybe it's a good thing that it didn't work. Definitely sounds pleasant. Oh my goodness. So anyways, all right, we're going to go ahead and jump off here. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for all the prayers. I hope y'all have a happy Veterans Day. And once again, if anybody is still sticking around over the Second Baptist stuff, drop your comments and let me know what you think about this. Am I being too crazy? Am I being too harsh? Am I spot on? Should I go further? How, and this is once again why I love to hear from people a part of Second Baptist, to get y'all's input on this. Is this being overbloated by the media? Is this something that's true, or is it not being talked about enough? That's what I want to know. All right. Anyways, I'll talk to y'all later, and I will see y'all on the next one. We're out.